try to find a place in the civil society and try to change the future of their nation. I wanted to show you a little portrait about the political history of the Italian nation and what brings to CasaPound today. It's a... Hi Dennis, take care about your garden next time.
I represent the ugly face of Russian nationalists.
So, our history, I say our history because it's something to belong to CasaPound in some sense, began at the end of the Second World War. The surviving fascists decided to found a party that was a common home for all the veterans for the new generation. This party was called Italian Social Movement. It was clear from the beginning that the mission of this party would be to become the voice of the Italian people who did not feel represented by the communism or the Christian democracy, at the time the two biggest political power in Italy. The Italian Social Movement has gone through the Cold War to the decades and has come to have many parliamentary and many delegates in the region, and so elected many mayors in the biggest important city. It's because it existed at the time, and it still exists in Italy, a strong culture that we could call right culture or patriotic culture. But something happened in 1994. The new leadership of the party decided to implement an historic turning point and close with the past to eliminate the connection with the fascists that seemed so embarrassing to them. The name is changed, and also the strategy, and then begins to follow the path of political moderation. The results were that suddenly disappeared the party. Sorry, my phone is boycotting my speech. Okay. Suddenly disappeared the party, and all the votes of the Italian right, far right, or moderate right electorate people go to Berlusconi. For 20 years, these votes are in the pocket of Berlusconi, and he began to change the vision and the mentality of the Italian people about the politics and about their approach to our culture and our spiritualism and our values. With the end of the so-called Berlusconism, that it's very long to explain. It's a phenomenon so long, it's social and political and economical phenomenon. But in the end of this political period, two new forces are emerged from this the dissolution of Berlusconism, and today are the Lega Nord, North League, and the Far Start movement. In both these parties, there are the votes of the right. The patrimony of votes that belong to the fascists who survived in the Second World War now is perfectly divided between these two different forces that today collaborate in the new government of Italy. Someone called this party populist in general. But what is the problem? That if in one end this party have gathered the vote of the radical right, from the other hands they don't allow the entrance, the influence of the radical movement like CasaPound inside their structure. They don't have in their genetics the values of the fascism that in Italy represent the real values of the Italian nation. I'm not here talking about my ideology. Fascism, you have to understand that fascism in Italy is not something belong just in the political field. It's a phenomenon, political, social phenomenon, an historical one, that build up our nation. So it's unavoidable in the analysis of our nation building. So you have to understand that by the historical point, fascism is the terminal part of our nation building. So we complete the conquer of our border, and then the veterans from the First World War create this form of government to complete our historical and our historical mission. So anyway, it's central for our life. So today we're in the situation that we have this new phenomenon, this new monster, this new democratic party called the Lega Nord. It's a very strange situation because Salvini, of course, Salvini is the famous leader, the frontman of Lega Nord, is against the immigration, and it's also stopped one NGOs, Soros NGO boat, maybe you heard about just one. But it's not a real nationalist, it's not a real revolutionary, have no revolutionary culture behind it. It's very often, it's improvisation or political intuition, but they don't lead a real alternative to the system. The problem that we arise as political militant, as member of a patriotic revolutionary group, is today how we relate to this phenomenon. Is populism a resource to be exploited, or is an artificial competitor to break down? Quoting a Palladino film, we can affirm that the only duty of an organized political group is the conquer of power. However, today, in one end, this party used our keyword, and the other end, they close, as I told you, they close every door to the infiltration of CasaPound's, for example, in Italy, in their structure. At this point, we must ask ourselves, what is our duty? What our duty really is? For sure, to take power and influence politics in our country, but also continue to be the shield of the people, continue to organize and promote national culture, cultural events, healthcare and economic activities for the poor, sport for the youth, and mainly important, to create our independent communication channels. That's why, because our goal is not only in the institutional politics. Our goal is to remain as close as possible to the population, because we are not normal party. We are sort of a popular army. So our goal is not to be the much popular or have a lot of seats inside our parliament, but at this with the population by our side. We must necessarily continue to conquer the state from the inside, pointing to the heart of the society. What every revolutionary movement must do is make itself unavoidable for the society. I mean, providing the civil service and help in the need the population, need of the population. Develop community center where the civil society will have interest, educate the new generation, creating study groups, excursion, summer camp, and professionalizing our economy's activity. Doing business has been a sort of taboo for many years for our movement, or for the revolutionary right side movement in general, but now it's become an unavoidable activity. Money is a necessary element to move the revolutionary machine. It does not have to be the demon that corrupt the integrity of millions, but not even something to fight and to not exploit. We have to remember that every sector that we abandon is filled by others, because in nature, empty space don't exist. And also in politics, empty space don't exist. If we leave a sector, if we don't cover every sector of the society, some other forces will fill this sector and will start to promote their own strategy. Once we have built in our fortress in the civil society, in culture, in economy, in education, and so on, we will be an element to be taken in consideration. At that point, you will not have to ask for a place in the list or knock the door of this politician or that politician to ask as a gift a place in the politics party. But there will be the politician that will search you to ask your help. It seems absurd to say, but the example most similar to what I'm saying is the social structure of the mafia organization. It's very absurd because, of course, mafia is one of the biggest problems of our country, but if you don't consider the crime activity, if you consider only the organization, they understand very well that a small group of organized men can be influenced for the state, just providing an alternative to the state. We must be alternative to the state. Our main task must be protect, educate, and defend the population, and restore our tradition of CasaPound since the experience of the occupation, the so-called squat, theater party we are now. But day by day, changing our form in an institutional party, we understand